This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and I am live here on the Hannibal TV with WCW, WWE, MLW, Impact, and Lucha Libre AAA legend Konnan. How are you doing today, sir?
Yo, what's up? Thank you for the invitation. Is this the first time we meet?
I actually met you once very briefly, but it was just a handshake. You were busy.
So was this?
It was when Impact was in Ottawa back in 2017.
Yeah, you sound super Canadian. For a minute, I thought you were going to tell me like when I was in Calgary. That's where I thought maybe you knew me from, but you're not that old. Yeah.
Oh, no, not yet.
Yeah.
I did hear about your time there, and I am going to ask you about that time. But there's a fan before we get this started that wanted to know if it's true that Disco Inferno's nose is so big he can smoke a cigarette out in the rain.
1,000%. Yes, that is hashtag facts.
Now, for Calgary, how was your time up in Calgary?
Calgary was weird because you have to understand, Devin, when I got into the business, I didn't grow up wanting to be a wrestler. It just happened. It just happened out of nowhere. And so I really didn't know about the indies. I didn't know about Calgary. I didn't know who Stu Hart was. So I had actually found out about them because I went to Hawaii once with Mando Guerrero because Chavo didn't show up. And Ross Hart, I believe might have been his name, was a referee. And he was refereeing my match. And I was doing a lot of lucha shit. But I used to do like a lot of cool shit for like a big guy. Because usually big guys in Mexico didn't do a lot of flips. They did big man shit. Like they'd tell me stuff like, oh, do the bear hug. And I was like, fuck that. You know, that's Mil Moscas can do that shit. I was young, bro. I wanted to do cool shit, you know. So I was just flipping around, and he told me, he goes, hey man, would you like to come to Calgary? You know, I didn't even know where the fuck Canada was. I never heard of Stampede. Well, anyways, just to show you like the mindset I was in, when Stu Hart called me, he told me, he was like, hey man, I want you to drive from San Diego to Calgary. And I looked on the map and I was like, yeah, bro, that's not happening. And I can probably imagine Stu going, who the fuck does this guy think he is telling me? You know, because later I found out who Stu Hart was. You know, this J-Bron who nobody knows who the fuck he is. You know, he's telling me he's not going to drive up here. Plus, I found out later that, do you know this guy that wrestled there in Calgary when I was there called Chip the Firebreaker?
Yeah, he was in WCW too, wasn't he?
Right, that's Chip the Firebreaker, but he was with you guys. He was with Stampede as, I forgot his name right now, Curtis Thompson.
Okay.
Do you remember that guy or no?
I only remember him from WCW.
Okay, well, he was in Stampede. And so and I later found out he drove all the way from Georgia to Calgary, you know. But anyways, Calgary was just a very tough town because everything was really far, you know, and I was there in the winter. So, you know, we were going to all these places like Moose Jaw and Red Deer and all these like far, everything's really, as you know, really spread out, you know.
Yeah.
I just remember that Owen Hart would drive the truck a lot because it was like this big van type thing, and I'd be in the back with. Did you ever hear this guy that was there? He was a champion, Larry Cameron.
Oh yeah, I know him actually.
Yeah, so Larry Cameron would be in the back. Jason Anderson, do you know him?
Yeah,
yeah, good friend. And we'd be in the back, and like you know, we'd be listening to like NWA, and he'd, you know, just to piss us off, he'd put country music on, you know, and. Just long trips, cold, not a lot of money, not a lot of fans. Like they would give me these checks that would say Foothills Athletic Club, which was the name of the promotion, I guess. Every time I went to a store, they were like, yeah, we're not taking those checks because they bounced. So I had to go to Stu, you know, and I was like, yo, could you pay me this? And he was very cool. He did pay me.
So those were not in the glory days of Stampede. Those would have just been.
No, but you're young, and when you're young, you're kind of like all that shit rubs off the back of you. You know, it's like you chalk it up to as an experience. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there was no money, there was no nothing. There's just it was a learning experience, learning Canadian culture. I fell in love with a lot of stuff about Canada. I didn't really know anything about Canada. You know, I made some good friends and stuff. You know, so it was just I try to always, you know, get the positive out of everything. You know.
There's a fan on here who wants to know if your gimmick was inspired by the movie Blood In, Blood Out, and why you don't do YouTube live streams on your channel.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet, but my character was basically, you know, I'm not Mexican, I'm Cuban Puerto Rican, but I started in Mexico, and it was my way of like I wanted to do something that kind of represented them, and so I was thinking mariachi now, this, that, this, and I was just thinking, oh, like a Mexican gangster, and but it wasn't from a movie. It was just the people that I hung out with, you know, like when I was in San Diego and stuff like that.
Now, you mentioned the Hart family. I think we've both had our ups and downs with Ted over the years.
Right.
What do you think of all the stuff that's happened with Ted lately? Do you think he'll be able to ever become the big star that everyone thought he was going to be at one point in time?
What was his last thing lately? I'm sure he's done something I don't know about.
The last thing I think was there was the assault charges with his girlfriend from Ring of Honor. Then there was the situation where he broke house arrest or something. He's still in Virginia on house arrest.
Bro, the last time I saw Teddy, he had sent me some video. This guy's insane. And he had taken, and I believe it was a Maserati, and it looked like a 6-year-old was given like a arts and craft kit with little beads and stuff, and told them to bedazzle a Maserati. Like, bro, there's like he had beads in the inside of the car and outside of the car, and it was really wild, you know. And he was going on these, you know, his usual rants. I just think that at this age, he was super. Let me tell you something that is a fact. When I was in ML, I still am, but when he was in MLW, it didn't matter where we went. Fort Lauderdale, New York, Philadelphia, wherever he went, he was usually the most over guy. There's something about that. There's something about the fan base, the indie fan base that knows what he's been through, and they're kind of forgiving, you know, and they know that he's out there and he's busting his ass. Yeah, he's a crazy motherfucker. He's got mental health issues like a lot of us do. His are just worse. You know, I have them too, you know, but his are worse, you know. And so very, very talented guy who will not reach his potential because he's his own biggest enemy.
I've heard you do a couple other shoot interviews, and it seems like early in your career you were in a lot of fights behind the scenes in Mexico, and there seems to be more fights backstage in Mexico than there is in Canada and the US. Why do you think that is?
I think because over there, there's still like it isn't like a corporate setting still, you know. It's almost like before WWE in corporate, you know, that it was, you know what I'm saying? Like I remember watching Vince roll around on the floor with Road Warrior Animal, and, you know, and everybody drinking in the back. And so it's still a little bit rebelliousness still is in the industry where guys don't want to talk. They just want to fight. And, but at the end of the day, especially in AAA, which is a promotion I work for now, we've become very professional in a lot of aspects that we weren't before. But it's just more, I would just say they're not as professional a lot of times. I can definitely say that.
I think it was back in January, a video came out, and I was surprised not many people were seeming to try and stop it, but you probably know what I'm talking about. It's not the original Psychosis, but some jacked up guy was attacking you.
Right.
Did you ever get that situation calmed down?
Yeah, 100%. And well, the problem is that he went there with 2 other guys, and that's why nobody was getting involved, because everybody, you could just tell by the way they were positioned and the way they were looking at everybody. They had to have been armed, because if the TNA or AAA guys who were all in the dressing would have come out, they would have destroyed these guys. So they were ready if something went down, you know. And I think the idea was to leave me laying there, you know, and tape it. And I was like, I knew that if I did anything, I was positive that they were going to leave me there, probably send me to the hospital. Yeah.
Wow. What would have been the worst backstage fight you got into in your career?
Uh, I think that almost every backstage fight was kind of broken up quickly, but I got into some really ugly fights with fans when I broke in. Yeah, because there was no security back when I started, and everybody would just come in groups and little gangs and all get drunk and all challenge you and push you and slap you. And if you didn't stand up to them, bro, the whole place would just punk you out. And so would the wrestlers. So I had more problems with the fans than actually wrestlers. Every fight that I had ever been in with a wrestler was quickly broken up.
And there's a fan asking if you had any heat with Sting backstage in WCW like Vampiro did. I know you guys are totally different personalities.
Right. Sting, no. Sting, one of the coolest guys I've ever met. He was very cool because, there was a time when Lex Luger was trying to get me out of the Wolfpack because he had gotten hurt wrestling me in a match. And I know Bischoff had asked Sting about me, and Sting goes, well, he's on the road with me, because there was times when I was in the main event with Sting because nobody else, everybody from the Wolfpack was at home, hurt, or didn't want to come to work or whatever. So they were putting me and Sting like on top. And he told Eric, bro, he's super over. Everywhere we go, he's super over. You'd be making a big mistake. And he came and he told me, he goes, yeah, they're trying to kick you out of the group. So Sting, always much respect, because, he could have said nothing. He could have gone along with them, and he didn't. He stood up for me, and so I always have mega respect for him. Sting is a cool dude. No, zero heat.
How did you get along with Nash backstage at that time?
Around that time, not too good. Yeah, not too good.
I guess it was just a political situation backstage.
Well, you got to understand, bro, when you have all those egos. Now, imagine you're Eric Bischoff, and you got to deal with Hogan, Macho, Warrior, Nash, Scott Hall, Roddy Piper, DDP, all the shit that you got to deal with, plus TV ratings, or, a war with another company and all the other things that we don't know about. It's a very stressful, hard job, especially if you've never done it, which you never had. And then you got people that you feel you trust, but everybody's got their own little agenda. You know what I'm saying? So it's a hard position to be in.
How was your experiences with DDP? Because I've heard some people say he wasn't always the nicest guy to deal with, but now he comes across as a saint.
We bumped heads a little bit, but at the end of the day, bro, and I can tell you this, he just has a great heart, and his whole thing is he likes to help people. He's been a real cool dude with me. When we were younger, we did bump heads, but like I said, we were both dumb and young. And when a lot of your decisions are predicated on ego, you're not making the correct decisions. And ego is something that's very powerful. You got to know when to use it, when to swallow it, and when to put it away. You know what I'm saying?
And Rick Steiner was apparently really stiff with you in one match in WCW.
Right.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, what had happened is that I didn't know this. He later told me, because I was like, bro, why were you being so stiff? And this is true. If you watch a match, you can see it is true. Shane Douglas is supposed to do a run-in, and for some reason he came out late. And so Rick, just kept hitting me. I actually thought he might be stiffing him, and I actually asked him as a shoot. I said, because me and Bischoff had some heat back then too, and Bischoff had also made a comment once to me and Billy Kidman in wherever the Islanders play, Uniondale.
Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah, he said, yeah, man, we were talking, and he was like, yeah, one time I was so mad at you guys, I was thinking of having some people just throw you into a room and turn off the lights and beat the shit out of you. And I was like, God damn. And What was the question that you had asked me? That
Uh, the heat, the heat with Steiner, where he supposedly
okay.
wrestled.
So when Bischoff told me that, in the back of my mind, I was now thinking all the time, fuck, this guy might ambush me one day or some shit. You know, that's why the day that he threw the coffee on Eddie, we were in El Paso. And I was like, bro, just please give me the word and we'll fuck Eric up. And he was like, no, please don't do that. And I said, all right. So in the back of my mind, I just thought Eric was behind him. And I go, did Eric tell you to do that to me? He goes, no, bro. And if he did, I wouldn't have done it. He goes, we don't have no heat. So as far as I'm concerned, we didn't have any heat, because before that, me and Rick had never had words, never had nothing. And he was always cool with me. I was always cool with him, you know.
I never heard that story about the coffee with Eddie. Could you tell us that?
I think Eric. I think this was in El Paso, and he. I think he wanted to leave the company. I believe that's what it was. I think he wasn't being used right, and he wanted to leave the company, and he got mad and he threw coffee at him, and then Eddie came out and he was super furious, and I was like, "Yo, what's up?" And he was like, "Fuck, he threw coffee on me. Can you believe that, motherfucker?" And I was like, "Bro, let me take care of this," and he was like, "No, no, no, no. Please do not do anything like that." Eddie was very religious and had a big, big heart, but he also had a very bad temper.
What was he like behind the scenes to hang out with as a friend?
Oh, no, he was super cool, bro. We got along great, because when I met him, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly how I met Eddie. I was in Tijuana and I was watching matches there as a fan, because I was deciding if I wanted to get into the wrestling business or not. It had been proposed to me. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on, because, bro, I didn't even know if it was fake or not, or not. I don't want to say fake, but you know what I'm saying? That it was already, I thought it was a legitimate. I wasn't sure what was going on, to tell you the truth, because I was like, bro, I've seen him hit him in the face, but I don't see anybody bruised. But then I'll see this, and I go, that has to be real. So I was still, there was no dirt sheets back then, and if there were, I wasn't reading them. You know what I'm saying? So I was still kind of trying to decide if this is something I wanted to do. And I see Chavo Guerrero there. Now, I grew up in Miami, and there was one Hispanic station when I grew up called Channel 23, and they used to show wrestling from LA, and Chavo was on it. And I used to think he was dope, because he was the first guy I ever saw do the Northern Light suplex, which he actually used to call the Mexplex, which I thought was a super cool name. He did really good promos. He was in a feud, which was hilarious, with Roddy Piper, where Roddy Piper was cutting down Mexicans back when you could, be more, you know what I'm saying? You didn't have to be so PC. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved him, and I was like, whoa, this is Chavo. And I was like, what are you doing here? He goes, yeah, I came to see my brother, Eddie. Oh, you have a brother? And he goes, yes. So when he introduced me to Eddie, we immediately hit it off, because he lived in El Paso, which is a border town. I lived in San Diego, which is a border town. I was like 3 or 4 years older than him. We both spoke like Spanglish, and we had a lot of things in common. And so we got along good, like right off the bat.
And how did you get along with Rey Mysterio over the years, who I guess he's still a free agent right now?
No, Ray's my best friend ever. He's an incredible human being with an incredible heart. He's a beautiful person, man. Beautiful person. And I'm so glad that I was able to help him, because you're not going to find a sweeter person than Ray, Yeah.
What are your thoughts on his son, who they're giving a push now? I saw some clips before we did this interview tonight, and I guess they did an angle tonight on Raw where they caned him with some kendo sticks or something.
Yeah, bro, that looked brutal. Well, he's my godson, so what can I tell you? Nothing but love for him. He was over here the other day, and he's a good. This is the thing, Devin. Like when I came into the business, it was just a different business. It was mostly men. A lot of them were, especially the veterans, were very, very jaded, because you can imagine, what the road was like back then, and how promoters were shadier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they were kind of bitter. It's just really cool that, when you meet Dominic, he's such a sweet human being. You know what I'm saying? Really cool person with a good spirit. So I'm very happy for him. And, and now I'm really invested in this thing because, they left welts all over him, so I can only imagine Seth, who's probably going to put the match together, and Dominic's probably going to listen to everything he tells him. They're probably going to have I think they're going to have a good little match. And I'm invested emotionally.
And for your time as Max Moon in WWE, I think they created that gimmick for you, and you ended up not doing it in the long run because Paul Diamond took it over. Could you tell the detailed version of that story? Because we had a lot of fans wanting to know it.
Well, no, it wasn't that he took it over. What happened is that, bro, this thing was very complex. Like, it had a head piece and it had arm pieces and leg pieces, and it shot confetti and it shot. If this thing would have come together, it would have been really dope. But anyways, there were times, because this thing was being made in LA and I lived in Mexico City. So I'd have to pick it up, go from Mexico to LA, pick up all these fucking boxes. And then sometimes I'd go to somewhere like, let's say, Cape Cod, so you're like landing in Boston and driving to Cape Cod and another taxi with all these boxes. And at around that same time, I was blowing up in Mexico. I had done a soap opera, which became very, very popular. And at the same time, I was doing a rap record. And so I was becoming like a draw in wrestling. So I was blowing up, and I was like, fuck up WWE. So I just didn't go to TV tapings. When I didn't show up, they fired me. And then Paul Diamond, or whoever, I think it was Paul Diamond. Was it Paul Diamond?
So
yeah, he was like, because I remember Tito Santana calling me and asking me to send him the boots. He said I fit in this, and they put him underneath that gimmick. But the thing was, the gimmick was really for a luchador. That's why if you've seen old pictures of me wrestling, you'll see guys like Art Barr, because he could base for lucha. They had another guy called Rambo, he could base for lucha. Louis Spicoli could base for lucha because he was from LA. So he grew up around lucha, but I didn't know how to wrestle normal. So they had to bring in luchadors with me. As a matter of fact, the first time I wrestled for ECW, Paulie put me with some guy. He might have been one of the many Dudleys they had. I don't know. He was part of some faction. And the match was absolutely terrible because I didn't know how to wrestle American style. And I was like, bro, I don't know how to wrestle American style. I think he thought because I spoke English, I did. I don't know. Right. I was trained in Mexico. That's all I knew. He said, so what do? I go to bring in some luchadors. And that's when he brought in Parka, and we had a real good match. It was like Rey Mysterio, me, Parka, and Psychosis, bro. And those guys are incredible bases. So, I mean, how can you not have a good match with them? Yeah.
There's a fan wanting to know more about La Parka right here. So could you share something else about La Parka? I hear he's really tough in real life.
Yeah. He's from the era even a little bit before me, and he comes from a really, really small place in Mexico. And, he came up the hard way, bro. I did not, because I actually started at the top. He actually started at the bottom, and he's one of the greatest wrestlers and entertainers I've ever seen. And when he was young, he was incredible. He could do everything. Now he's just like a big badass that likes to brawl and takes a lot of punishment. And when he beats you up, he looks like he's beating you up. It doesn't look like some, wrestling like they, the wrestling beatdowns they do today that look really fake. And you're like, really, dude? When he brings it, there's a sense of realism, and the people appreciate that because they know what they're seeing is a performance, and they appreciate the performance.
I had a really bad experience meeting Juventud Guerrero last year.
Right.
He's probably one of my worst interviews I ever did. How do you get along with him now? I know that you guys have been off and on again friends over the years.
Bro, with Juventud, it's just, he's just a weird dude, bro. He's oblivious to the stuff that he does and will never take any accountability or responsibility for anything that's his fault. And when you can't do that, then you're playing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you play yourself? And, I'll tell him stuff, bro. I've fired him 3 times, Teddy too, you know, and they're kind of the same way in that you're telling him stuff, why they're being fired, why they're being reprimanded, and they always think it's something else, or they always want to put the blame on something else. And it's like, bro, it's you. Nobody else is fucking with you because of this type of bullshit.
What happened with that fight backstage? I think you were there for Jack Evans, who I know and seems like the calmest guy ever, getting into it with Juventud.
There's an honorary Canadian, if there ever was one. Jack from the heavens. I love that guy. So Jack, what had happened is when Juventud first came in, he has a really bad habit of eating people's lunch. Like, he's better than just about any wrestler he's in the ring with. And if he knows that he has to do the job, he's going to make you look bad before you beat him. And bro, that's so unprofessional to me, And so when Teddy Hart and Jack Evans first came down to Mexico, bro, they were doing incredible shit. And I was like, Juventud's a perfect veteran, hopefully, to help them. And I was like, Juvi, help these guys out. You need to sell for them. And he wouldn't sell for them, bro. He treated them like J-Brones. And it was very frustrating. So that day, he had a problem with X-Pac. So X-Pac put a piece of manure in his luggage. Now, I'd been mad at Juvi, so mad that when he came into the dressing room, you know how you shake everybody's hand? When he went to shake my hand, I didn't shake his. So he already knew he had heat. And so he finds the piece of shit in his bag, and he goes into where the gorilla position is, where the owner of the company is, and he throws it on the floor. And I can't believe, you run a company where you let people do it. And he's just cutting a promo, kind of like a bitch. And then everybody's kind of looking at him like, oh, okay. So we had this battle royal. And bro, when he went into the battle royal, it was like ants on honey. Everybody went in there and just nailed him and nailed him and nailed him. He came out of the thing. He goes to the back, and he accused me of putting the manure in his thing. And I go, bro, are you sure, Juventud? He goes, I know it was you, you motherfucker, bitch, pussy. He starts insulting me. I go, are you fucking sure it was me? And he picks up a chair, and he comes after me. And by this point, I was so mad, I just wanted to destroy him anyways. Bro, Jack comes out of nowhere, and it was almost like the dress room that we were getting dressed in was like, imagine that you went to like your school's, talent show, and everybody's sitting and there's like a stage. Yeah. So he was on a stage and we were down here. He came flying, nailed Juventud, and just proceeded to just beat the shit out of him, and I was kind of mad because I was like, bro, I wanted to, I was so tired of his bullshit. And so, we separated them. By the time we separated, he'd broken his nose, and he was all fucked up. I never even touched him. And so, of course, Juventud started to like go on news stations and shit like that and say that me and like 4 guys beat him up, and people that weren't there and didn't know, they were like, oh, that's fucked up. Really, it takes 4 of you to beat him up. I was like, bro, I never even touched the motherfucker. Straight up.
There's a fan that wants to know if you think Hulk Hogan held you down at all in WCW.
No, I don't think he saw me as any threat whatsoever. Yeah.
Do you think if they'd given you a bigger push, you could have been more over, because you were really exploding at certain times during your run there, especially with that rap video they put out of you?
To tell you the truth, Devin, everybody in that mid card, bro, everybody deserved everybody. Eddie, Chris, Jericho, Disco, all those guys, they all deserve to be pushed. We all did, It's kind of weird. They all had to go to WWE to really get pushed.
Yeah, why do you think they never took you back in WWE? Do you think that was because they were bitter over you leaving during the Max Moon run?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Could you tell us, for the fans that don't know much about Mexican wrestling like myself, just how popular it is there? And for people that might think you're crazy to have stayed in Mexico and become a huge star there, what exactly was wrestling like there at that time?
What was the first question again?
Like, how popular was wrestling in
Oh, all
Mexico at
right.
that time for fans that don't know?
Well, I would put it very easy. So if you look at the United States, probably the most popular sport is probably like football, then probably baseball, basketball, hockey, UFC. Wrestling's kind of like down there. In Mexico, it's soccer, then wrestling, and that's how popular it was back then. And that's how popular it is right now. Like, we're not having any problems like ratings problems or popularity problems. We were really, really, really hot before the pandemic, you know. Just the fact that, the people over there have a different respect level for wrestling than they do over here. So they really get into it a lot easier. And so, like, you have actual heat in the matches that you don't have in the United States. Like that old school heat that you probably experienced in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, but it's not that same heat anymore.
Yeah, I wrestled in Puerto Rico a bit, and they were a little bit slower in the early 2000s to cross over to the way it is now. So I know what you're talking about. Mike Tenay said you were the Hulk Hogan of Mexico at one point. Is that an accurate description of your popularity there?
I when I broke a lot of gate records in Mexico when I was at the height of my popularity. So I was definitely, a draw for many years down there.
And we have a fan question here from one of our good fans that I know is a big fan of yours. He wants to know your thoughts on Master P's crossover into WCW.
Bro, at that time he was blowing up like a motherfucker. I think that, since they didn't really have anybody in the booking office that would really understand Master P, they didn't know how to book him. You know what I'm saying? And I knew that everything was turning when one day it was in Atlanta, Georgia. And even though Atlanta, Georgia has a very, very big black demographic, they also have a very big, like country white boy demographic. You know what I'm saying? And that's mostly what was going to the wrestling matches. And they did some angle where, like, it was like all No Limit soldiers were attacking like these two cowboys. Visually it just looked wrong, and the people kind of turned on them. And I always kind of wondered if that was done on purpose or not, but at the end of the day, it was an angle that did not work.
And this same fan wanted to know about your time in the Navy and who would win between, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm guessing it's a Mexican boxer and Muhammad Ali.
He's a Cuban boxer, Teofilo Stevenson and Muhammad Ali. Bro, that's one of the greatest questions of all time. I don't know, bro. That's a very, very good question. I can't go against the countryman, so I would have to go with Stevenson. U.S. Navy, I was there 7 years, and I traveled the whole world. Indonesia, Africa, Bahrain, Kuwait, Philippines. It was crazy, crazy, crazy times. I mean, if you go to Subic Bay is what it was called. It was in a city called Olongapo, Philippines. And it was like, you got off the ship, you crossed this bridge. Bro, it was like Sin City times 10. Anything and everything that you could imagine was going on in like a 10-block radius. It was incredible, bro. It was like a pleasure place just for, like soldiers and sailors and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And everything, bro. You could go there and get a whole suit made in like a couple of hours, a whole bunch of, clubs and everything that you can imagine. It was really dope.
And that reminds me, a bunch of people wanted me to ask you, are the groupies in wrestling better in Mexico or when you were in WCW?
The groupies definitely in Mexico better now for sure. Okay. Than the United States. But I think when wrestling's really, really popular, that's like when you see a lot more females coming to the show. And like I said, our shows are real popular.
I've known a few people that have wrestled in Mexico, and they said that cocaine is a lot more common backstage there than you would see in the U.S. I know you're with The Office, so you might not actually see that as much, but is there any truth to that?
Yeah, but I have this like weird thing, like the wrestlers know they can trust me and shit because I'm not gonna go fucking talk about anybody's private life. So I hang with both sides, but I would say, bro, in Mexico, it's really gotten down. It's probably about the same as in the United States, but Mexico used to be way worse, way, 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 way worse. And like one of the things that I tried to do is clean up the dressing room then, and it wasn't easy.
How was the WCW dressing room for the drug scene and the party scene?
Bro, everybody was out of their mind, including myself. Everybody was out of their mind, and you were just, imagine, Devin, uh, you're in the one of the top rated shows on TV that's super popular to the mainstream. So everywhere you go, from restaurant to strip club to clubs, to after hour to a mall to anywhere you go, people know who you are. They want to hook you up and take a picture and all that. So it's really cool, bro, because you're catered to everywhere you go. It was just a crazy, crazy time. Plus, you're traveling the whole month, and everybody was either it was drinking or they were taking pills or it was very few that weren't.
I don't know if you're still with Impact Wrestling at all. It says online you are, but I was wondering what your opinion is on the whole Tessa Blanchard thing, putting the title on the female of the men's title and then having her basically not drop the title back before ending her relationship with the company.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I do still work for them.
Creative department.
Anything that has to do with me, like the whole LAX thing, that was like a collaborative thing, me and them. So right now we're just waiting for, because they don't have everybody going back, as you've seen, and I'm actually high risk, because I have underlying conditions. So they're taking care of me, which I do appreciate. And so I kind of already know when I'm going to be back. And I'll probably be like managing somebody, and then I'll have a lot of input in that, I just thought that I just find it hard that I think when they gave her the title, they must have known that she hadn't signed yet. So I just found it very weird that they give her the title before having her signed, because this could happen. You don't want it to. You don't think it might, but it did. And I don't know what could have happened between them for her after they put her over and made her the first woman ever to be the a champion in a belt that's always been held by a male. Not that least want to come back and return the favor after all those people put her over. You know what I'm saying? So there must have been some bad blood between them for her not to come back. Who initiated it or what the real deal is, only they know, but something must have happened, because you would have thought she would have been like, hey, I don't got a contract, but fuck it. You put it on me. So I think she actually beat Brian Cage, which I would not have done. But anyways, and then beat Brian Cage. She had a great match with Sami Callihan. I think that's the one where she won the title. I actually saw that match. That was very well done. But I thought she would at least come back as a way of telling the company, thank you for believing in me. And to the guys that believed in me too, okay, and helping me make history, I'll come back and I'll lose it. What happened that she didn't come back? We don't know.
Do you think that will affect her getting hired by WWE or AEW, or she's kind of the top heel in wrestling right now, so she still has value despite those issues?
Yeah, I don't think they care about problems they have with other promotions,
There's a fan asking if you're familiar with Puerto Rican indie wrestler Sonia Strong.
No, I am not.
What about that angle that you did with Carlos Colon in Puerto Rico where you smashed the guitar over his daughter's head? You got a lot of heat for that. Any memories of that angle?
Yes. Bro, if you go watch that on YouTube, the whole thing, it's actually very well done. So basically what had happened is I had I convinced Carlos Colon's daughter, his real daughter, her name is Stacy Colon, to be the manager of me and Cadley. Cadley is Carlitos, okay, to be our manager, okay. But all of a sudden, the dad starts hearing that they saw us at the beach together, they saw us at a restaurant together, and so she's telling her dad, "Well, it's business. We're just talking about business. He went there to train. It's all business, But and then he's hearing about more people seeing us together, and then I tell her, tell your dad what doesn't he trust you? Didn't he raise you right? And she does. She's like, hey, I'm your daughter. You raised me right. I wouldn't do anything to make you look bad or anything like that. And then, but he kind of keeps pressing her like, I know I told you not to mess with wrestlers. I don't care, but do not mess with wrestlers. Till finally she's like, yo, we need to tell my dad. So I said, you know what? Tell your dad to put on his best, jacket, tuxedo, whatever. You get dressed up. I'm going to tell the whole world that, we're going to get married. Boom. So that day I walk in with a mariachi band. And in Mexico and Puerto Rico, the dressing rooms are separated. And I could see all the wrestlers coming out to watch the angle. And as they're serenading her, because that's basically what the thing is, like a love song to her, you could hear people in the public saying, yeah, that's a real gentleman. That's how you do it. That's how you treat a lady. I'm like, oh. And so I go, but you know what? Here's a song that I wrote myself that I want to sing to you. So I grabbed the guitar, and just as I'm about to play it, I hit her over the head. When I hit her over the head, the guitar was not gimmicked. So now I've knocked her out and she's bleeding. And I'm like, oh, fuck, Carlos is going to kill me. And I look at him and I just kind of say, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, that's good for business. And I was like, what? And I just go at him and I tear his shirt and I run into the dressing room. All the heels are cheering. And bro, the people waiting for me outside. This is on YouTube. You can find it with those riot shields. They had to take me out with riot shields. People were throwing rocks and sticks. And it was like that for like 2 weeks, and people on the street. Puerto Rico ain't that big. But it was kind of funny because on the street, this was kind of funny to me. A lot of people were like, yeah, good. I'm glad you did it. Because what had happened with Carlos is he was kind of like Hulk Hogan. He was being a babyface too long and he was oblivious to it, and people were trying to convince him, bro, one of your sons needs to turn heel. You need to turn heel. The Colones can't be eternal baby faces, because the people were turning on him and I could hear it in the streets. But that was an incredible angle.
Did you ever have any pay issues working with him? I know he usually takes care of his big stars, but
who?
Did you ever have any pay issues with
Carlos? Yes, I did have pay issues with him. And it was very sad because I loved Carlos a lot. He's a very humble dude, and the one thing that you learn in life, bro, is you learn to be humble or life will do it for you. You know what I'm saying? He was such a national hero, but he was humble. And we talked a lot, and I grew to really like him. But what had happened is that he was going through major depression. His brother, I believe it was, got shot, and he had to go to court every day with his mom, and his mom was having nervous breakdowns. And then his best friend called Invader. Him and Invader got into a fight, and he left the company to the rival promotion, which was IWA. And bro, he just wasn't himself. He was depressed. He didn't have any good ideas. And I was kind of pissed off because after we did that angle, they really did like some really business that should have been handled better. And Dutch Mantel, I think, was a booker for IWA, and he ran into me somewhere, and he was like, "Hey, would you like to come over to IWA?" He goes, "Think about it," and I was like, you know what? I need to leave here because this is not going to get better. And those guys were on fire. And I said, "Yeah, I'll be at your next show." And bro, Carlos owed me money. And that night, I remember I was, he calls me and he says, "I'll have your money for you tonight." And I was like, "Oh, fuck. If I tell him, he may not pay me." So I just waited till I saw that envelope slide under my door. And I go, "Thank you for the money, bro, but I'm about to leave."
You're very lucky you got the money.
Yeah.
Most of us don't.
Most of us. So you include yourself.
Yeah, I include myself in that. Now, for Alberto Del Rio, I'm sure you're familiar with all of his problems he's had lately. What are your thoughts on what he's involved with in the latest accusations?
Bro, that is so sad because I tell him all the time, Jose, that's his name, is like, God gave you everything, bro. You look like a movie star. You're tall, fucking the pedigree of amateur wrestling. Like he was a top-notch, amateur shoot wrestler. You're charming, bro. You can talk. I mean, why are you getting to all this fucking trouble, man? You've been triply blessed in fucking life, I don't know, bro. It's very sad. It's very sad.
Do you think when he reemerges in wrestling, it's probably going to be on the Mexican scene if he ever does?
I don't know, bro. And he's not, he might be in his mid 40s, right?
Yeah. By now, at least early 40s.
I don't know. They haven't seen him there in a long time. He might be able to go there and, just depends what shape he's in and all that. Mexicans are very forgiving, and it's like, welcome back home, So yeah, he might get a good reception down there, but I haven't heard from him in a while.
Did you catch his fight against Tito Ortiz?
Yes, that was very fast.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if
there was a part of me that thought, is this fixed?
Yeah. That was a part of me that thought that too. That's why I was wondering.
Do you know Paul Lazenby?
No.
Okay. Do you know who he is?
Never heard of him. Who is he?
Right. He's this Canadian guy that he's like a friend of Chris Jericho's. So I think he was like a power lifter and just a cool dude. I just thought you might know him. Okay. Canadian. I just for some reason think all Canadians know each other now, like, No,
it's a big country. Just
yes, I know. I've been down the highways, believe me, my brother.
There's a fan that wants to know what you remember about the cumbias you performed at back in the day, cumbias.
Cumbias. So basically, when I first got to Mexico, I wanted to do rap music, but there was only one producer that was doing rap music, and it was like happy rap, kind of like, like Rapper's Delight type of shit, and I wanted something more hardcore, and they didn't have any rap producers. So this record company, real big record company, put me with this producer that did cumbias, which is like some Mexican regional, maybe even Colombian music that I don't listen to, I don't like, but I had to do a song because I was really hot at that time, and I had to do it in that genre.
Okay, that explains it. And there's Alex Mines here has a good question. What are your thoughts on Chris Jericho? His band Fozzy played Sturgis last weekend, and it's all over the news today. Some people are hating on him. Other people are saying good for you that you're helping things move forward.
What's he helping move forward?
Well, the people that don't want people to live in the world where you have to wear masks, I guess.
Right. Well, like to me, it hits a little bit close to home because my mom passed away from that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real deal issue. It's up to you what degree of risk you want to take. Because you are taking a risk.
And how are things with you and Vampiro now? We've seen the ups and downs over the years. How is things now?
Yeah, I'm cool with Vamp. Like we're just two totally different people. He's more of an introvert. I'm more of an extrovert. He's a punk rock guy. I'm more of a hip hop guy. So we've always been really different in just about everything. You know what I'm saying? But now at this point in our life, at the age that we're in, I'm cool with him. I know, he's another guy that suffers with mental health issues, bro. Like I said, I have them too. So it ain't like I'm hating on anybody. I'm just stating, you know what I'm saying? I'm cool with him.
I think he has Alzheimer's now too, doesn't he, or something along that line?
Well, who knows about that? That motherfucker, he half the shit he says, I'm not sure if it's just to entertain himself or us or what. So with him, I don't know.
I've heard you say in another interview that some of these kidnapping tales that he's told over the years are probably exaggerated.
Yeah, the tremendous tales. Yeah. So, he's like Teddy Hardy, that he's in work mode. And then I would like to add, I know you may not be something that you toot your own horn about, but they are two fellow Canadians, Devon.
They are fellow Canadians, yes. But that means they're also competition to me, so whatever. I thought Vampiro was my friend, but I saw a clip of him saying he was friends with me, and then he takes a shot at me right after.
That's tremendous.
So I kind of lost my trust in him after I saw that.
That is tremendous.
There's a fan here asking, what are your thoughts on Roddy Piper, and did you ever party with him?
Piper was, like I said, he was my hero from when the Chavo Guerrero days. And then I met him again because he wrestled in Portland, and Love Machine Art Barr, who's one of my best friends, he was from Portland. So Roddy had come down to Mexico to do a movie, and he introduced me to him there. And so when I got to WCW, Roddy always remembered me because of Love Machine. He was kind of an eccentric guy, bro. Like, he was a character. Like most of those guys were all characters, they were real live characters. And Teddy Hart reminds me of like those type of guys, And I remember one time Rey Mysterio needed like a pain pill, and he was like, "Hey man," he goes, "I just saw Roddy had some pills, but I don't know him." He goes, "You think you could get me a pain pill from him?" And I go, "Yeah." And I go, "Yo, Roddy, can you hook up my boy Ray with some pain pills?" And then Roddy goes, "Sure, come over here." And he opens up his hand, and he goes, "I have 7, 2 for you, 5 for me." And I thought that was hilarious.
Now, you don't have to go into detail on this, but I had a fan that wanted to know if it's true that Lita dated a lot of wrestlers when she was working in Mexico.
To tell you the truth, I couldn't tell you because she didn't work in AAA. I actually brought her once to AAA, but she had just left WWE. And something that I find kind of funny about most people when they leave WWE, like they need to decompress. They're like, I don't want to know shit about shit for a while. And she was in that mindset where she didn't even want to wrestle. So I was like, well, why don't you just bring your band down here? And she had some band called the Lucha Goers or something like that. And then she came out and she opened up one of the shows, but I don't remember her dating anybody then. Maybe she did when she was there before.
Yeah, I think it was referring to the time before WWE, but as you said, you wouldn't have known that. And there's some story about Nancy Sullivan or Nancy Benoit that the fans wanted me to ask you about.
What story is that?
Apparently, she went crazy or something down there.
Bro, that's a very touchy subject, and I'm not gonna get into it really that much into it because she's no longer here.
Yeah.
But you know, uh, there is a story, you know, of her going down to TJ. She wanted to valet Psychosis, the original Psychosis, and I just need to preface this by saying that when I was in ECW, she was the one that called. I'd already met her and Kevin Sullivan in a tour of Singapore that John Arezzi put together. So we went to Singapore and we went to Manila. And me and Polly started to chop it up there. And that's when he was telling me about ECW and all that. And that's where I met Kevin. So when I got to ECW, she called Kevin and she was like, yo, I think you need to take a look at Konnan. So he made me an offer. And then I told him, bro, I really think you need to take a look at Ray. And he was like, yeah, well, he's kind of short. And I was like, well, yeah, you're kind of short too, bro. And so, just see him, the guy's different. And so, yeah, they were mesmerized by Ray and Psychosis. But anyways, Nancy was down in Tijuana, and she partied a little bit too much, and I got a little bit crazy. But I don't want to touch on that. She was a very beautiful person to me, and she is no longer here.
Yes, unfortunately. I guess you would have known Chris Benoit, I guess, from both ECW and WCW.
And Mexico.
Oh, of course. What were your
and Canada? He was in Stampede when I was there.
Okay.
That's when I first met him.
So I guess you were pretty shocked then, knowing him that long.
Mega shocked, bro. I'm still shocked, bro. I still can't comprehend anything, bro. Nothing. That's not the guy I knew, and he was always cool with me and very nice with me, and I loved Chris. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for me to understand what the fuck went down.
And last question here before we wrap this up. You wrestled Ric Flair in WCW. How was your experience in the ring with him, and what do you think of him overall as a person?
When I worked him, I remember he was talking to me in the ring, kind of like in Carney, and I had no clue what the fuck this guy was telling me. I was actually lost in the match, but I will put him over because me being a big Ric Flair fan, I asked him to take 2 bumps for me. I think one was the one in the corner that he always did, and the face bump that where that one.
Yeah.
And he did do both of them just because I asked him to.
Wow.
But I got lost in the match. I didn't know what the fuck he was telling me. And I just found him around me. He was very disingenuous, bro.
So you didn't go out partying with him then, I guess?
No.
So you have the Keeping It 100 podcast. I believe it's on the MLW radio network.
Right.
You're in MLW. You're still active, I guess, on camera and behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. And, that's a great place to work for. I like to work for Court Bauer. They do a lot of cool storylines and discover a lot of young, good talent. And I'm in the middle of a real good storyline that has a really good ending.